Hi, welcome to Relish Books. Today I am talking about A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles, or Towles, however you say his name. I have read this a couple times, but it's been a few years. I believe it was published in 2016, and then I read it a couple years after that, and then again a little bit later. So I remember it pretty well, but it has been a little bit since I read it. But I thought it'd be fun just to talk about it kind of in general a little bit today. I feel like it's one of those books that came out a few years ago, was a huge hit, and instead of completely dying away, I think it has remained pretty consistently popular, and for good reason, in my opinion. So it's about a man who, in Russia, had committed some sort of, with the constant changing political powers, new power comes to Russia, and he is in trouble for this poem that he apparently wrote that they felt was in opposition to them or something like that. Anyway, for a political crime of some kind, he's sentenced to imprisonment, essentially, or house arrest, I think is more the proper term, in the Metropole Hotel in Moscow. So he can live there however he wants. He's totally free to live there and do his thing, but if he ever leaves the hotel, he is sentenced to be shot. So yeah, this, I feel like, is such a great premise for a book because almost the entire thing is his life in a hotel. And it's a big hotel, so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different things in it. There's a restaurant, a bar, a barber shop, all these things. And yet at the same time, it is just this one building that he cannot leave. And when I first started reading it, I did not expect that it would span so much time, but it really does. He spends, the book covers more than 20 years, maybe even more, like 30 years of his life in this hotel. And you might think you would feel the confinement of it, but I think the beauty of this story is the vast world that he discovers, or that he builds for himself, rather, in this life. That he doesn't become depressed. For a while, he thought that he would, kind of when he came to the end of what he wanted to do, he was just going to end his life. Obviously, he decides against doing that, and instead creates a very fulfilled and thriving life for himself within this hotel. The friends that he makes among the staff, the visitors, the relationships that he has. It's just a super fun story. I love the premise of it. I love that it doesn't feel confined. It feels like a vast, busy, super interesting world within this one building. So that's really the draw of the book for me. But the adventures that kind of happen, some of the political stuff comes into it more, especially later on, and that's all very interesting. He has great escapades with his fellow people in the hotel, mostly the staff that he makes friends with. He eventually joins the staff because he has a great talent as a host. He's a gentleman, but with his talent as a host, he is actually very good at helping in restaurants because he has a talent for feeling the temperament in the room, for feeling exactly which person should sit next to which person and which people should not sit next to each other. All that kind of thing he has a natural knack for. And just the way that he uses the talents that he has from this old life that's so different from this new one, the way he uses them and doesn't let any of his talents go wasted in this new environment and in this new station in life, I think is really great. The writing, I really enjoyed. I thought it was really fun, especially when I first read it. Second time around, well, the first time too, I was on the edge. I was like, is this really great writing or is it pretentious? Is it a little too purposely formal, maybe a little uppity? And I think that it is. I think that that's very purposeful to match the Count's personality. But I do think it is maybe a little heavy-handed. Like I said, I think it's on purpose, but maybe a little over the top. But I really enjoyed it. It's a very crisp, clean writing, beautiful descriptions of food, descriptions of just the people and the places are gorgeous. Really, really like all that. As far as questionable content, there's a little bit. When I was first reading it, I was amazed because I don't normally read modern books, especially back then. And I was like, wow, this is so clean. There's next to no language, bad language in the book, which is very, very rare for a more modern novel. There's a little bit of other stuff, let's say. There's a woman that he has a relationship with over the course of the years at the hotel. My biggest problem with it is really just how casually intimate they are right from the start. I definitely have a problem with that. It was startling, I think, in the context of the book because the Count is so proper. He's so formal and courteous and stands for all these. It's funny, the author wrote another book called Rules of Civility, and I feel like that's what the Count stands for, these rules of civility. But, yeah, so that relationship is awkward, but I don't know, it depends on your limit on what you want to read, because you really don't see much of anything. There's no graphic descriptions whatsoever. Obviously, you know what's going on. You see kind of the edge of it happening, but nothing graphic. I didn't like it. It's not going to be something that's going to make me not read the book, though. It wasn't to that point for me personally, but that is in there. Other than that, though, it is very clean, very, again, matching the Count's kind of personality. It's very upright in its language and the way that it approaches things. Yeah, a lot of fun characters. The way that the time jumps work are startling, and at first I was disappointed because you're reading and you feel like it's building up to something and you're so interested. I was so interested in everything that was happening in his day-to-day life that then in the next chapter it would be like 4 years later, 3 years later, I would be like, what? I wanted to know what went on in those years. And I think also as you're reading it, you expect something to happen. You expect him to be able to break free of the hotel or something before, you aren't really expecting him to actually spend so much of his life there. But again, I think it's a testament to the storytelling of the book that he really does spend a vast part of his life in this place. And that is mostly what the story's about. Another thing of interest, I love the Count's kind of routines that he comes up with. The way that he sets up his living quarters, really neat, really cozy. I enjoy that kind of thing a lot. This is actually the book that made me read Anna Karenina because it's the Count's favorite book. If I remember right, at the beginning of the book, he had not read it before. He had this volume of it that he used to prop up his desk or something like that. It was under the leg of an uneven desk, I want to say, something like that. He hadn't read it before. Now that he has all this time, he reads it, and then over the course of his life at the hotel, he reads it over and over and over again and comes to deeply love it and deeply appreciate it. So that's what made me read Anna Karenina. I don't have the same opinion of it as the Count, but I do think it kind of made the book more special to me to have that connection. You know, when there's a book that has special significance because like a character or someone in your life, it's special to them. Even if you don't care for it, it will add a certain significance. So yeah, there's a few things in the book that aren't strictly realistic. Some maybe stretches of reality, but I didn't mind them. I think it all works. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, with those few warnings, I would definitely recommend it. I think it's a really pleasant read. I was talking the other day about one recommendations for like cozy reads. I don't know if you would necessarily call this a cozy read, but for me, a lot of it just felt so enjoyable and comfortable and fun. That's kind of how I would describe the book while being of literary quality. Maybe not the highest quality in the world, but definitely quality. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Not going to rate it the highest in the world, but if you're looking for a more modern book that feels like it has something of greatness in it, I would definitely recommend this one. Not The Lincoln Highway, though. I had read this book and I saw The Lincoln Highway come out. It was on a reading list at the library back in my hometown, and I was like, ooh, I will read this. I was excited about it. One of the worst books I have ever read. I only made it all the way through because I was reading it for the library thing. And yeah, it was truly awful. It encompassed a lot of stuff, ton of different plot lines, and all for just a horrible experience throughout and a horrible, horrible ending. I don't mind sad endings, but I do mind horrible, pointless endings that are horrible just for the sake of being horrible. Maybe if you've read it, you could tell me some greatness that I'm missing in it, some theme of wonder or something, but I hated it. It was awful. And I feel like maybe that's partly why I didn't talk about A Gentleman in Moscow before, because for a while it kind of tainted it for me. I don't like it when that happens. I want to judge an author's work individually. If there's a book of theirs that I love and a book of theirs that I hate, I don't want the one that I hate to affect the one that I love in any way. But sometimes you can't help it, because sometimes if you read, especially the first book that you read by an author, if you love it, then you're hopeful that you're going to love all their work. And it is a disappointment when you realize, oh, they're not good. They were a one-time wonder, and now they're like all the other rotten writers out there. So that's kind of how I felt reading The Lincoln Highway. So don't recommend that one. I do still want to read The Rules of Civility at some point. I haven't got to that yet, but I don't know. If anybody's read it, please let me know what you thought of it. But yeah, Gentleman in Moscow, I deeply, deeply enjoyed. Might be partly just personal taste. Sometimes I think I was really in the mood for it. I talk a lot about what books we're in the mood for at different times, but at the time that I read it, I loved it. Second reading, I didn't love it quite as much, but still solidly liked it. So those are my thoughts on A Gentleman in Moscow. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.